Hey guys, it's Geography Lover here. Welcome back to another brand new video. And today we're looking at the 13 British colonies. Sorry I haven't uploaded in a while. I think videos will kind of be now monthly. We'll see how things work out. I'm really busy with my schedule right now, so expect the upload schedule to become just monthly. Sorry guys, that's just how it is now, which is kind of already has been, but that's how it's going to be. All right, so let's get started. 13 British colonies. So all the colonies before they were a thing. The Spanish found a group of islands and called it the West Indies in 1492 to 1494. So this was like several, like over 500 years ago, back in the 1490s. The expedition was led by Christopher Columbus and his crew of Spanish conquistadors. They colonized and enslaved many of the indigenous people in Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, and Cuba, and Hispaniola, a lot of the islands, and in South America as well. They call this new territory Nueva España, or New Spain. And also the Portuguese landed in Brazil in 1500, and they called their territory New Portugal, or then later named it Brazil, after the of course, after they were supposed to go to India. That failed them. Then let's start off with the New England colonies. Back to the 13 colonies. New England colonies were first settled by the Plymouth colony in 1620 to 1621. The first Thanksgiving, you may have heard the story between the Pilgrims and the native people there. The Plymouth colony expanded into more people, making the Massachusetts colony, Massachusetts Bay colony. Many people were not happy about the governing laws there. They're very strict. You have in 1692, the Salem witch trials occurred in the Massachusetts Bay colony with all like the witches and stuff. That was weird. If you guys have seen the movie The Crucible, you'll know how that worked out. And the New England colonies consisted of 4 colonies that were one. So Massachusetts included part of Maine currently, but it was part of Massachusetts during the time. So if you hear like Portsmouth, Massachusetts, back in the American Revolution, that was actually part of Maine. That's actually part of Maine today. The Massachusetts Bay Colony, the Plymouth Colony expanded in the 1630s. People came to the colony from the Church of England to get away from that, the Puritans. They also had land in Maine. It was the start of the New England colony. It was the first colony the English colonized in the North. Massachusetts economy relied on lobster and fishing, kind of like that, lobster and whaling, sealing, like all that. Shipbuilding, definitely. The colonists started to move south when the Puritans were getting too strict. In the 1630s, they moved south and formed the colonies of Connecticut and Rhode Island, and some went up north into New Hampshire. But first, we get into the Connecticut colony, which was founded in 1636 from people from Massachusetts Bay Colony, also people from England, wanting to govern themselves. The Connecticut colony didn't want to follow the Massachusetts colony and the church. Connecticut had different puritanical rule. The Church of England was the one of England, of Puritans. It was the first state to have a constitution after the American Revolution. But that's why Connecticut is called the Constitution State. It also has one of the first official, they had the Connecticut colony and the New Haven colony, which is a city in Connecticut, also a metro area. It's a county also, but it became its own separate colony, and then it joined the Connecticut colony later on. And speaking of other colonies, Rhode Island colony, which was next to Connecticut and New Haven when they united, the Rhode Island colony was also established in 1636, same year. It was different from the Massachusetts colony because they were more puritanical, but also they're a little bit more freedom, but they're very, very strict on their rules. They were the smallest of 13 colonies, but it was a good place to settle. They had more settlers than New Hampshire and the northern Massachusetts area, so it actually had more colonists there. But it did touch both colonies there. And speaking of New Hampshire, the New Hampshire colony was founded in 1638, so after those two. It was founded by Mason and John Wheelwright. It was named after Hampshire, a city in England. New Hampshire was more of a like religious beliefs area. It was more like a freedom. It had an important city, Concord, the capital, was built during this time. It was more of fishing, fur, and skins of the fur trade. It borders Massachusetts and New York. In the mid-Atlantic colonies, there were 4: New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. New York and New Jersey were originally part of New Amsterdam, the New Netherland. New Amsterdam was the capital of New Netherland, which was the Dutch area. But the English took over in 1664 after a battle, and they got the new charter, and the colonies became English. So New York, the New York colony, originally the New Netherlands, and had the city of New Amsterdam, but the name changed to New York after the Duke of York, the king's brother, James, future James II and seventh of the England and Scotland. New York, it was New York City. It was named after that. It was a port city coming to England. The ships sent food and supplies to the rest of the colony. So it was more of like a shipping colony and more farming. The New Jersey colony was part of New Netherland as well. It was named after the island of Jersey in the English Channel, bordering France. It was made a colony in 1664. New Jersey's main port city is Trenton, capital of New Jersey now. And it had a little bit of a terrible dispute with New York over Ellis Island. There's a video on CGP Gray if you want to look at that. Link in the description. But New Jersey and New York were fighting over that island. And then Pennsylvania, it was formed in 1682 by William Penn. That's where the name of the state comes from. He started farmland as more of a farming state and founded the city of Philadelphia, which became the major city. And it was named after King Charles II. The word Slovenia meaning woodland, so it was a lot of woodland. They were Quakers, and they were anti-slavery, so that was good. And then the Delaware colony, it was established in the 1630s by the Swedish, so they came there, and it was called they founded the city New Stockholm. However, the Dutch took over in 1660, and then the English took over that in 1664. It was named the Delaware colony after the English took over. The port city of Dover, based on Dover in France, the channel in Dover, so that is why that is the capital of Delaware. That's the name of where it comes from. And then the southern colonies, there were 5. They were basically slave trade areas where there was cotton exports, tobacco exports. They were Maryland, Virginia, North and South Carolina, and Georgia. And the first colony that the English even settled was in Jamestown in 1607, in the Carolinas, and then Maryland, and we'll get on to that after. But Maryland's first. Maryland colony was founded in 1632. For religious freedoms. The people of the colony were Catholics coming from King Charles I, who was a Protestant, and that whole debate over the English church and the English Civil War, but that's not important right now. However, the Catholics were banned in the Maryland colony. Maryland was named after the Queen of France, Henrietta Maria, King Charles I's wife. Parts of Maryland were part of New Netherland, but not a lot of it. Mostly controlled by the British, English at the time, and then South Maryland was some of it was given to the city of Washington D.C., but that's later on when it became a state. And the Virginia colony, that was the first colony. The first city was Jamestown, 1607. If you've seen the movie Pocahontas, you'll know that and the whole story behind that. Virginia was named after Queen Elizabeth I. She was known as the Virgin Queen. The Jamestown settlement expanded over the 1620s into the and all that. So it did have slavery. It was the main slave state, especially during the Civil War 100 years later. So that was a whole thing. But Virginia was known as this thing here is like get rid of tyrants. It was in Latin. North Carolina colony was founded in 1653, with Carolina being named after King Charles I of England and Scotland. Carolinus is Latin for Charles, so it was split in 1729. The major port city was Raleigh, which is more center, but the major port city was like Kitty Hawk around like the coast area. It had a charter with South Carolina, and they had to follow like a very similar rule set until the colonies were split in 1729. And then speaking about the other Carolina, South Carolina was also founded in 1653. The Carolina Charter, same thing. They had to follow they had a governor. They became a separate colony in 1729. They had slavery, just like North Carolina. Tobacco, cotton, and I think wheat as well. But it was more tobacco and cotton were the ones there. And then finally, the Georgia colony, which was the last colony founded in 1733. The British, it became the British colony. It was protected. It was to protect the colonies from the Spanish who were in Florida. Georgia was named for King George II of Great Britain. It was also a slave state. Pretty much its main economy, cotton, tobacco. Main city was Savannah. That was the big city. And that was really the supply city. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.